And then I think we're good to go. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Super excited for tonight. And we want to start tonight's session in a good way. So we're going to take a moment right now to kind of center ourselves, center our relationship with the land, and kind of take a moment to reflect on the histories of the land, the people of the land, and to acknowledge our responsibilities as Treaty 7 people. So I believe all of you should know at this point, but if not, we are hosting from Treaty 7 territory, which include the traditional territories and home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani. These lands are also home to Tsuut'ina Nation, Stoney Dakota Nation, and home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. When Treaty 7 was signed, it was and remains a promise between nations to share the land and to support one another. And it's up to each and every one of us to work to make this place and this world better for all future generations. And so we just want to take this moment to kind of center that and to remind ourselves that we do have that responsibility and to reflect on what that means for us as individuals who live on Treaty 7 lands and on Blackfoot Confederacy territory, and also to think about what that means as people who are seeking to build community and to reclaim outdoor spaces on these lands as well. So hopefully that's something that you're already thinking about and holding in your efforts. And if not, definitely always a great time to start. So tonight's your night. Welcome. My name is Amanda Palmer, and I have the privilege of being the lead of the Community Development Learning Initiative. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a white settler woman who has been privileged to be a guest here in Mohkinstsis for the past 7 years. I know most of you are familiar with CDLI, but if you're not familiar with us, we are a network for community-minded Calgarians, and we come together for important conversations to connect, inspire, and act. And all of that's in an effort to help make our communities better. And we kind of recognize community in a few ways, certainly communities of place, but we also recognize communities of interest and identity and culture as well. We host regular gatherings like this one, which we call our monthly meetups. And here we try to invite in special guests or host spaces for deep conversation and sharing to kind of advance our own community efforts. We also have community development practitioner gatherings to deepen the practice of practitioners. And sometimes we'll also hold special events, which many of you have participated in the past. We also have a community development learning program, which many of you have been a part of and helped with. And we're always looking for other ways to connect and support community development initiatives here in Calgary. And thanks to COVID, we've also been able to connect with people outside of Calgary in the surrounding communities. And last month, we actually had somebody from Edmonton who joined in on the meetup to share. One of the few benefits has been being able to reach people who we might share space with, but aren't always able to participate. So that's a little bit about who we are. And tonight we came here together to explore the topic of reclaiming outdoor spaces for community. We're super excited to be having this conversation now and to be thinking about what that might mean as we move into longer days and weather that's maybe a bit more comfortable for more people to be outside. We're still, of course, navigating COVID and what that means in terms of gatherings, but we can certainly be creative in terms of how we connect with one another and how we use outdoor spaces as part of that. And certainly this is not a conversation restricted to COVID, but certainly thinking about as well, all of the outdoor spaces that we have in Calgary that are maybe underutilized and not being held in community the way that they could be. So to get our conversation started this evening, we're going to hear from some wonderful folks out of Knox Presbyterian Church, which is in the southwest of the city. I think we're going to start with Tiffany, who has kind of been involved in a lot of really creative efforts there as the community engagement specialist. Last summer, they had a lot of really creative projects about outside, or that took place outside as a way to continue to connect to community, and also kind of looking at intentionally at how to help people kind of take take green space that's there that people are kind of avoiding for whatever reason. So we're really excited to hear from them about some of the stories of what they've done in the past, and also talking about partnerships, intergenerational community connections, and the strengths of residents and how those all were part of those initiatives as well, and what that might look like this year too. And then we'll also look to spend a bit of the evening creating an opportunity for the rest of us to share some of the ideas of things that we've done or things that we'd like to do, and see how we might support that to come to fruition. So that's sort of our plan for the evening. And I'm not sure if anybody did this, but we did also invite people to, if they wanted, bring a rock and some art supplies, which you could decorate while we have the conversation. So if you did that, awesome. We'd love to see what it looks like by the end. If you didn't bring a rock, no worries. I personally sent my partner out on a mission to go to the river earlier this afternoon to collect me one, and he did find one that has like a very beautiful smooth bottom, which is perfect for decorating. So I'll probably work on mine a little bit. We'll see how much I'm actually able to accomplish, but we wanted to give an opportunity for us to also do something physical while we had this conversation, and whether that you use that to start something in your own community, or if you want to drop it off at the community rock garden that started last summer by Knox Presbyterian, you're welcome to do that as well. So I'm going to get Tiffany to start sharing a little bit in a moment. But before we do that, would love to give everybody the chance to introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to know who you are, your name, what your pronouns, what community you're from, and what your favorite outdoor place is to connect in your community. So if you want to introduce yourselves in the chat while we get Tiffany set up with a screen share, let's get to know a little bit about who is here with us tonight.
Hi, I'm Penny. I live in Dover. We have a pretty great green space in our neighborhood, which we just started using a bit before COVID happened. So I'm really hoping that there can be much more kite flying and bocce playing and things like that. Somebody moved into our hood who initiated a get-together to play bocce. And I'm just thrilled to have another initiator in our community. Darn COVID.
Thanks so much, Penny. That sounds wonderful. So you can please feel free to keep introducing yourselves in the chat, and we will go ahead and start hearing from the incredible Tiffany.
Aw, thanks, Amanda. You're so sweet. So yeah, I'm really excited to share a few stories and reflections with you all tonight. And yeah, I'll preface this by saying I'm going to flip back and forth from screen sharing to just speaking like this. And also, if you hear small voices behind me, that's my son and his babysitter. So he may also burst through the door at any moment. So yeah, so I'm excited to just share tonight about how Knox was able to activate some of our outdoor space last summer. And there's a few volunteers and other key people who are involved in the project who are with us tonight. So I will call on them all at some point. Yeah, just excited to be thinking about summer and warmth and just sun. So as I was preparing today and pulling together pictures, I just warmed my heart just looking at all the opportunity and the fun that we had last summer, and makes me excited for what could come. Just kind of wanted to just remind us all, and we're aware of it, but sometimes we forget just how important our outdoor spaces really are. And we know, like, research has shown over and over again how outdoor community spaces and neighborhoods really is directly correlated with mental health and physical health and emotional well-being and social connectedness. And that we began understanding that more and more over the summer through real life examples of taking a space that was very underutilized and bringing some life to it. It's also a very small space. It's like a small strip of lawn and a parking lot and a dumpster area. And it was amazing how just using this tiny bit of space, we were really able to see those impacts over the months of, especially during a pandemic, when activating and utilizing outdoor spaces just became so much more important than ever before. So to give a bit of background on our project, I would have to say it started even before COVID. So it started fairly early last year when we started having conversations at Knox about a problem we were having on the corner of our property where people cut across the property as a shortcut. And we had this issue of some exposed roots that were flagged by our insurance company. So I will quickly just share with you a picture of what that was and how something so simple really launched some really meaningful conversation for us. So this is the shortcut. And there are some pretty serious root issues here. And this is a very highly trafficked area. If you just sit here, last summer I pulled my desk or pulled a table outside as a desk just to work out on the lawn. And I was so surprised by how many people cut through this space to get from the neighborhood to the businesses that are across from our building. So the conversation around this, I'm just gonna see if I can pull up. Bear with me as I go back and forth here. So yeah, the conversation really started as like, well, the easiest solution would be to build a fence or put up some sort of barrier to redirect the foot traffic off the property. But that really didn't sit well with people at Knox. The conversation kind of centered around, well, there's enough fences in our communities and there's enough spaces that are decorated with like do not enter or private property signs. And we don't need more of that in our communities. And then someone threw out the idea to build a garden bridge over this highly trafficked path. And that, I believe, was Paul, who's with us tonight. And yeah, we'll call on him a little bit later to share a bit about his involvement with the project. But yeah, this concept of we need bridges, not fences, in not just our communities, but in our world in general. It kind of became this like overarching concept or a mantra for us. And yeah, we just went into this whole other realm of brainstorming just to come up with more ways to let people not just pass safely through the property, but we began wondering like, what about making a place where people might even stop? And a place where that might make people smile, and a place that might even, where people might even meet someone new or try something new. And we just started taking the conversation to a whole new level. So then around the same time, and about mid-January last year, we also had a weekly group meeting at Knox that was called the Community Builder Workshop. And yeah, at this workshop, we were sharing ideas of things that we could do in our neighborhood and kind of supporting each other and launching ideas and yeah, just networking. And the conversations about the outdoor space started spilling over into this group as well. And so that got a few more people talking about what we could do outdoors. And one of our amazing community members and one of the key volunteers in this whole project, Kate, who's with us tonight as well, was one of the facilitators for this workshop. And yeah, it was just really great to have these kind of colliding conversations all happening around, what about this outdoor space? What about gardening? What about, it was all dreaming at that point. But I am very thankful for you, Kate, and your willingness to facilitate some of those conversations. And I'll call on Kate a little bit later to share a bit about her involvement as well. Yeah, then couple weeks later, COVID hit. And we had to cancel our workshop meetings, and all of our dreaming and conversation kind of hauled to a stop for at least a few weeks, maybe months, until we discovered this wonderful thing called Zoom. And we were this terrible but also wonderful thing called Zoom. And we started meeting online and kind of getting the conversation rolling again. And the core group there grew to a mix of Knox members and community members, and just a neat crowd that we were meeting online. And like all of a sudden, just by bringing people together, it was like, bam, we were rolling again, and the ideas were flowing, the energy was still there. And we were all kind of coming to grips at that point that COVID might be around for longer than we had anticipated. And so the desire to redirect energy and resources towards the outdoor space definitely helped put some wind in our sail and get things rolling. So we started a Google Doc that we would just pour our ideas into, and pictures. It was screenshots from Pinterest, ideas of where to source materials, or partners that we could connect with, ways that we could engage new community members. And before we knew it, projects and activities started happening. So one of the first initiatives that kind of took off was the rock garden. So I will share my screen again and show you a few pictures of that. Oh, one sec. Let's get that up. Here we are. Perfect. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so this was the rock garden, and I will make it bigger for you. So the rock garden was a really neat initiative that it was a really good timing situation, because people were really eager for anything that was promoting positivity and connection in the neighborhood. So before long, the same people, we placed the rock garden along that same shortcut path that I had mentioned earlier. So it was kind of that highly trafficked area. And before we knew it, people were just dropping off painted rocks and filling this garden with these messages of hope and symbols that were just really beautiful. And yeah, we really enjoyed watching this grow. Every time I came in, I was excited to see a new rock or a few new rocks. And yeah, I haven't figured out yet how to share my screen while also seeing my notes. So figuring out this. You can still see the PowerPoint, right? It's just not as big. Okay, well, that'll have to do for now. So let's just see here. Yeah, so it was around April, the end of April last year, that we got this going. And it was just, yeah, really good timing for people just looking for just any signs of positivity. And then it was also neat because one of the people on our dreaming team was Alexandra from Immigrant Services Calgary, who also lives in our neighborhood. And she kind of got involved with this, with the youth group at Immigrant Services Calgary. And so what they did was they dropped off packets to the youth's homes that had rocks and paint. And then they did an online activity where they all came together and they just had a lot of fun painting rocks. And they actually had an artist come and kind of facilitate some learning around that. So that was just a really neat connection that was made. And then, yeah, I bet a lot of you actually know Alexandra. She was probably would have been with us tonight, but she just had a baby a couple weeks ago. So very exciting. So from there, we kind of rolled into another initiative, which was our coffee hour on the lawn. And that was a really special time where people, for the first time in weeks, I guess months at that point, were finally able to reconnect with their friends in using outdoor spaces. And the comments that were shared about how important this time was for people, like being the only social interaction that they had available to them after everything in their life had just halted. It was just really special to be able to create this space on our teeny little lawn. And this is in replacement of our weekly cafe that we normally would have had indoors, which has been going on for several years. But obviously we couldn't have that because of COVID. So instead of being able to serve people their free coffee and refreshments and just have a nice gathering space, people had to bring their own drinks and bring their own chairs. But people adapted really quickly and didn't seem to mind. So that was nice. And then they also moved into the parking lot because they found it was warmer and out of the wind. So it grew from just being coffee hour on the lawn to coffee hour on the lawn and in the parking lot. So another initiative that kind of launched fairly early was the Hopscotch project. So this was a really fun, just a neat opportunity to just promote a little bit of playfulness on the property. And it aligned well with this concept we were having about how do we pull, instead of, trying to pull people off the property, how do we take people off the sidewalk and onto the property to really kind of promote that community space feeling. So we actually used patio pavers and put the hopscotch squares right into the ground. And we had a lot of fun with that. We had some great partners to help with this. Again, Immigrant Services Calgary was involved, and our local paint shop, Annalyn Decorating Center. They're amazing. They donated all the paint and brushes and everything. And we were able to have some events around that is centered around painting. Centered around painting the squares, which actually took a few small events because things needed second coats and third coats, and we realized, oh, people are going to be stomping on these. Like maybe if another coat would be would be helpful. So it ended up taking a little bit longer by the time they were all finished and sealed. But the neat thing was every time we set up to paint, we also set up spaced out tables where community members could just stop by and paint rocks that could then go in the rock garden. So we had people stopping by to paint the patio stones and rocks, and it was just really neat to see connections be made that way. And we were able to promote some of our paint events on social media and on the Nextdoor app, and that was a really fun way to engage the community throughout the summer. And I guess we just kind of got a little obsessed with paint. It was a huge source of fun for us. And from there, we focused quite a bit on our picnic table project. And for the picnic tables, we partnered with the youth group from Immigrant Services Calgary, and also Annalyn donated even more paint, which we actually went in to like purchase paint, but they were like, no, you can have this. Yeah, we're excited about what you're doing. And that was just a beautiful gesture from them. And we had a local artist who did an art sale fundraiser, Leanne Ellis, and helped purchase the tables. And yeah, just lots of community members who helped with the finishing touches and securing them into the ground. And the intention was that the picnic tables would be, well, the shape was important. So we loved the idea of the hexagon shape because it just circles feel better in community. And the other fun thing, we've been calling them the playful picnic tables because we have intended to put tic-tac-toe, paint tic-tac-toe squares on top and put checkerboard on top. But then we kind of backed off on that idea because of COVID and everybody touching things. And so you can see people here were painting the little rocks that were going to be used as playing pieces, but they're still set aside waiting till it feels more appropriate to have more communal touching of things. Let's see here. So yeah, those are just a few notes about the picnic table. So another fun project was our dumpster makeover. This was our dumpster before, and then this was our dumpster after. And here's us in between cleaning and scraping and yeah, just really getting in there. So yeah, again, it was just that concept of like being a good neighbor and having that community pride. And actually I should preface all of this by saying the idea behind this really came out of a conversation after one of the Thursday morning coffee hours, where a few of us were standing in the parking lot looking at this disgusting dumpster, and we're like, something's got to happen here. And it was with just like, I think there was about 4 or 5 of us standing around this nasty dumpster, and all of a sudden this like vision happened. And yeah, we're like, all right, let's set a date, let's get people in to clean up, let's get the supplies we need, and put out a few shout outs within our community connections, and people just started stepping up with supplies. Paul, who we'll hear from later, like was amazing in just like being super resourceful in finding materials and supplies and dropping things off. Hey, will this work? Let's try this. And just like getting in there and like fixing up boards. And my mind was blown how that went from like just a quick conversation to like people taking action. So that was really neat. And then from there, somebody had the idea of that it would be cool to not just have like a nice clean fence around the dumpster, but how cool would it be to put a mural on the side of it? And around that same time, through the hopscotch painting, we had met our wonderful, amazing Jamie, who's on the left here, who unfortunately, she was planning to make it tonight, but unfortunately is not able to join us because something came up last minute for her. But she was amazing. Like a community member I hadn't met before came out to help with the hopscotch through a post on, I think it was a social media post. And all of a sudden she's like, we were talking about the mural, and she's like, oh, well, if you need someone to cut the wood, let me know. I have these tools. And just out of nowhere, she was like, oh yeah, I'm actually a carpenter and an artist and I'm like, ah! And it was just amazing. So she became the lead on the mural project, like the lead artist, lead carpenter. She was just completely instrumental in making this project happen. So you can see her cutting wood here, and some others painting the background for the mural. And then I have some pictures here to show of her. Yeah, it's happening. So yeah, just painting, and she just poured her heart and soul into coming up with a design and getting some paint on the boards. And then we really wanted to make it a community mural. So what we did was, she had this vision of a tree with leaves on it, and the leaves, each leaf would be painted by a community member. So we ended up planning this really neat event, another paint event, and set up, I think we had 5 tables spread out across the parking lot, COVID protocols in place, you know, the jar for the dirty brushes and a jar for the clean brushes. And we had amazing volunteers from Youth Central and from the Knox Presbyterian Church. And they helped with all like cleaning between the uses of each table, and just, yeah, keeping things safe for people and staggering people's participation times, and then like an amazing job cleaning up at the end. Yeah, they were just, these youth were unreal. And then, we also had at the same event some local musicians come. So we combined 2 things. We wanted to do a community celebration event, and we wanted to get these leaves painted. So we combined 2 things into one event, and had a live music and some, yeah, just the painting set up on one side, and people were able to sit on the lawn and enjoy the music on the other side. And yeah, we were able to add a few other fun ways of a few other partnerships and collaborations in the community. And I'll save that for Lauren, who's going to share a little bit later, to share a bit more about. But yeah, it was just like, I just feel like we need more music in the streets, right? And this was just a really great opportunity for that. So people painted their leaves, and we prompted them to paint a word on their leaf. We didn't obviously force anybody to paint, and people could paint their leaf however they wanted, but we encouraged people to write hello or welcome in either their first language or one of the languages they speak, or just a fun way that they like to say hello. So we had some lots of different languages represented, as well as quite a few like howdies and yo. So that was really fun, just to see the different words that people put on there. But again, with that that messaging of welcome and yeah, just trying to promote a sense of inclusion. And so here we have our Jamie working on the finishing touches on the mural, and Kate working on the finishing touches of the dumpster. And yeah, everything just coming together. And here's it's a little bit blurry. Maybe if I make it bigger, it won't be so blurry. Let's try that. Oh, nope, still blurry. This was not the one I intended to put in here, but there you go. You have an idea of what the tree looked like when it was completed. And I think a few things to highlight here are, it wasn't necessarily intended in the original design, but as we started figuring out how we were going to get the leaves on the tree, we thought it was really neat that the leaves were like physically distancing from each other. They're all spread out. They're not touching. There's like 2 or 3 that might be touching. But we just thought that was such a neat thing that came to be, as just this symbol of like, we're all in this together. We all can still be together and form this great just picture together. Even though we might have to be adapting and our branches that hold us together might not be there, but that, you know, still like just that sense of togetherness, I guess, was a really neat product of this design that Jamie had come up with. And I wish she was here because she could tell you all kinds of other fun, meaningful things about this that were special for her. And yeah, I enjoyed just watching this mural come to be. I think it was probably the highlight of my summer. We did have a mural inauguration event where some of those finishing touches and the graffiti coating was put on. And again, music in the streets. So Paul, who I've mentioned before, helped to coordinate some singing for this event. And it was just really lovely to, again, just have music. It just really lifts people's soul. And yeah, any opportunity to incorporate that into activating outdoor spaces, I highly encourage that. And we also had a wonderful volunteer who has done a lot of gardening around Knox. And I just wanted to mention her as well, Julie. She has some amazing visions for the space, but it was just really cool to have connected with, and she's been doing this for years, but she really took off with her gardening outdoors at Knox. And it's amazing how you can bring so much beauty and color to a space. And she was like transplanting things from like her friends' gardens that they were getting rid of over to Knox. And it was just really fun to watch her just take off. And yeah, she's got some fun ideas for this coming summer too. So a couple things I wanted to mention. Obviously, we had challenges with the weather and the wind at one of our events. And yeah, just the changing regulations of COVID, and our contractors for certain things were really busy. And the supplies and availability and pricing was fluctuating significantly due to COVID mainly. So even though we had these dreams of, for example, the welcome bridge that I mentioned at the beginning that kind of spurred all this on, hasn't even been built yet, but it's in the plans for this spring. And we are also hoping to put up a bulletin board so we can be able to share information easily. More easily. And then a free little library. We actually are partnering with Youth Central to get a free little library and a free little pantry put out in the space. So at this point, the only thing that's actually here is the rock garden. Everything else was kind of pop up, and the picnic tables are over to the side. So I don't know if you can see my cursor right now when I'm making it go over here. But yes, we have benches in the works. We also have some garden beds that are hopefully going to be made. But again, the supplies is a huge issue right now. Like there's almost no cedar available. And what is available is significantly overpriced compared to what it would have been over a year ago. So definitely some setbacks, but we are still dreaming, we're still planning, and we're still excited about what's coming. And then I am going to hand it over to Lauren, who's with us tonight, to talk a little bit about some of the funders and the partners that we had, and just to share a few reflections on just the value of making those partnerships and collaborations. And yeah, so yeah, Lauren, are you still here with us?
I'm here.
Awesome. Okay, so when Lauren speaks, you can all see her, right?
Yeah. Okay, good. Great. You head nod. So just a bit about me. I'm wrapping up my 4th year as a communication student at MRU. So a lot of my thoughts and strategy comes from a communication and public relations standpoint. And so that I think that really actually proved beneficial in connecting with and gathering donations, was really using those key messaging strategies, using that connection, that emotional appeal, to connect with people who we hoped to partner with or use their resources. I guess the biggest learning point for me, this was a huge learning curve, and I'm so grateful for Tiffany and Knox to bring me on board. I learned tons of things through them, and especially Tiffany as a mentor. So one of them was just to simply enjoy the process and know that whatever vision you have in your head, just let it go, because you have to be open to what happens, and you have no control over the finished product. It's just embracing what people have to offer and what they can't, and that's okay. But for me, in the communication standpoint, it was the key messaging of why are we doing this, for who are we doing this, and what's the big picture. So when I wrote, I know we drafted a couple of letters to just local people saying, this is what we're doing. If you'd like to be a part of it, that would be great. And I think a huge part of that strategy was the emotional appeal, and being very forthcoming, saying, if you have something to donate, great. And if you don't, that's okay, but here's what's going on. And just creating that human connection, that awareness piece of, hey guys, this is Knox, this is our project, and this is what's going on. And that transparency, I think, really resonated with a lot of those organizations, especially I feel like Lowe's. When we reached out to them, I said, hey, we're local, you're local, we're neighbors down the street, and this is the project we have at hand here. And when I talked to a manager, it was like, yeah, sure, let's discount this. We know we might have some, is there anything else? And I'd tell them, our bigger ideas, and they'd see what they can contribute. So for me personally, it was not underestimating what people are willing to do for you. And not being shy about just sharing the whole picture and the visual for them to see what they could offer us. As well as this whole, I don't know about you guys, but I have this whole take complex of like, are we taking too much? Are we asking for too much? And I've recently come to terms with, especially through this process, that there's this mutual give and take, and the organizations like Lowe's, I'm trying to look at who else I wrote down, Lowe's, Annalyn, we also partnered with a candy organization, or a local candy shop called Sweet Fusion. We bought cookies from a local baker, Butter Love Sugar. We did business with contracting Brett Russell, who did our sound at the events, and local musicians. And I worried about always the take concept of asking for donations. And I really started realizing that this is a mutually beneficial concept. It's a symbiotic relationship where they're getting that good feeling too. They get to be a part of community. They get to feel good about what they're doing. And Tiffany and I were even discussing how when Lowe's, we went to go pick up some pallets to create a stage. The workers were like, wow, this is so cool that we get to help you guys make a stage for your event. Like, that's so awesome. We feel so good right now. And so I no longer stress about that take piece, because I know that they're also getting that experience, that giving back, that feeling good moment. And same with Lowe's, who did so many great things for us. So it really is the bigger picture and describing that, because it really is a community movement. As much as we want to say, Knox started some of this and did some of that, it's a bigger movement about community and connecting with people and revitalizing people's spirits and bringing joy back into the area. And so really focusing on those kinds of emotional pieces from a communication standpoint was really important. As well, I had a huge learning piece of don't be afraid to take chances and put yourself out there. So we made an Instagram account and we started putting stuff up on social media. This is what we want to do. Here's what we're thinking, and being really creative with those hashtags and tagging people and doing all the little social media creative movements, because a happy accident happened is someone tagged Youth Central in one of our posts on social media on Instagram. And they said, hey, is Youth Central interested in doing something with this organization, or aren't they kind of doing something like this already? And so we ended up reaching out to them, and it was an awesome partnership. And we found out we had a lot of common interests, a lot of opportunity for potential collaboration there. And that wouldn't have happened if we didn't put ourselves out there online. So and I think actually a few carpenters reached out to us because we had put stuff out online. So I guess kind of putting yourself out there was a big learning curve for me, and using all those outlets like hashtags to just get that exposure. And I guess the last kind of highlight for me was that it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm a perfectionist. I like organization, and everything has a schedule and a time and a task. And I guess the biggest thing for me was when you're asking for community to collaborate, they can give what they can at that certain time, and that it can be a huge thing, a huge contribution. So between just Paul, like even Paul being able to contribute his time, and I think he donated wood and supplies, to even the local candy store who was like, what is this all about? I'm happy to help you, but what is it all about? And having that conversation with him, that it's just a community event in which we're trying to enrich people's lives. He was more than happy to say, okay, let me give you a 10% discount. Let me help you out in any way I can. And for me, that was the biggest takeaway. It was not underestimating the kindness of our neighbors, especially during a time like COVID, when we all kind of need that little pep in our step and that human connection. People are willing to really step out of their comfort zones and help you. So that's kind of my takeaway from a communications standpoint. And I'll give it back to Tiffany.
Thanks, Lauren. Lauren was just so instrumental for us last summer. So I should have mentioned before she started talking that Lauren was our summer student at Knox. So in case anyone was curious about what the connection was, and we were just so thankful for all of the skill sets that she brought to the table and the ideas that she had that just I would have never thought about, and that willingness to like get the ideas, these ideas that we were just kind of having more internally, like really getting them out to the community, putting them on social media, getting the Instagram account going, and it was very, very helpful. So thank you, Lauren, for everything you did. Lauren had mentioned just the importance of like being willing to be flexible in ways that people contribute and participate. And when you are flexible, your mind will be blown by the ways that people step in. I see Marie and Murdo are also on the call here. Marie was like our sidekick when it came to anything painting. And just like showed up anytime we said there was going to be paint on the lawn. I think she was there. So that was so helpful, and she also has great artistic skills as well. So thank you, Marie, for your contributions. I wanted to give Paul a chance just to share maybe a highlight or two from his experience of being involved. Just another example of like, we're doing the rock garden, he's there with rocks. Like we're doing the dumpster, he's got wood and paint and everything. And we're doing a mural inauguration, he's got singers out on the lawn. Like it's just like, and just having that flexibility of opening it up to the creative ideas that are in your community that you might not have ever expected or known, or like the skills or insights that people bring to the table. So yeah, Paul was involved through it was weaved into almost every one of the projects that I had mentioned earlier. So Paul, if you don't mind just taking the floor for a moment and sharing just maybe a highlight or two for you.
No, I'd be really happy to speak, Tiffany, and thank you, and Lauren. Honestly, it was just so exciting. I mean, Tiffany and Lauren were kind of like lightning rods that, you know, all this energy came to them, and they fired it out to the community, all these great ideas. And for me, as a musician, a professional musician, I kind of lost everything during COVID. I'd lost a lot of raison d'etre, and this gave me an avenue to feel like I was helping and contributing, and it's so funny. I mean, you know, Tiffany and Lauren were setting them up, and I was able to spike a couple of those sets because I had rocks and I had lumber and paint. We just replaced. We just tore down a fence and replaced a fence, and so I had a whole bunch of fence boards that were going to go to the dump. So total win-win, you know. And so I just brought those in and just had to cut them and screw them in place. And in terms of the highlights, I mean, I loved the adoption in the community. The uptake on everything that we wanted to do. We added some rocks and people got on board, and all of a sudden that rock garden just blossomed like a fruit tree, and there were all these rocks and it was meaningful, you know, and the mural as well. That whole inauguration of the mural gave everybody a chance to participate and have some ownership in that project. And all this work that's happened outside the church, I'm one of the two music associates at the church, has really allowed the outside of that building to reflect more the diversity and the energy and the love that's inside that building. It looked pretty austere on the outside with brick, you know, brick faces and you know, stonewalling the community in a way. You know, everything happened behind brick, and all of a sudden, you know, Tiffany's ideas and Lauren's ideas enabled us to sort of open the doors and let in some fresh air and connect with the community and you know, create that interface and that give and take, and it was really wonderful to see that, particularly that inauguration, all the energy that focused on that, the art, giving everybody a chance to paint leaves, the music that happened, and the hopscotch and the tables, and you know, I mean, in many ways, there's small things, but they're also big things. They're meaningful things. There's a lot of love and emotion and energy that comes with those gestures of goodwill and connection. So it was really my pleasure to be part of that. And like I say, I was just trying to, you know, see a need, fill a need kind of thing. And it was really my pleasure to be, as Lauren said, you know, you sometimes feel guilty about asking, but I would definitely echo that. It was really my pleasure to be able to be part of these projects and to feel good about having had a hand in them.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Paul. And yeah, I know you had mentioned there that a lot of them were like, it was Tiffany's idea or Lauren's idea, but it was actually a lot of your ideas. And it was just fun to see how when we all put our heads together, we could make things happen. So, and all of our tools and resources. And I also just wanted to highlight another person who was very involved, and that's Kate, who's with us tonight. And going back to that concept of like, whose ideas were all these ideas, a lot of it came from just bringing people together And, you know, I had mentioned that this really started with the community builder workshop, like before COVID had even hit. And, you know, just that idea of bringing people together. And it's just amazing how all of a sudden the brainstorming happens and it's like sparks are flying in the room and it's like, oh, would that be possible? And how could we make that work? And so I just wanted to give Kate a minute as well, just to share a highlight of being involved, kind of seeing it through to the end. I mean, for being there, putting finishing touches on the project, but also just being one of those catalysts. I should mention, Kate and I met through CDLI. We met at a CDLI event like a year and a half ago. And when we discovered that we were in the same neighborhood, we're like, oh, we should chat. And yeah, it's just really neat how so much of the original kind of shaping of the snowball happened just by bringing people together. So again, shout out to CDLI, and I'll hand it over to Kate for a moment just to share just a reflection or two about being involved.
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. I wanted to get involved, I wanted to feel more connected to the local community and see what we could do to make the community better. So that's why I was really excited to meet Tiffany at the CDLI event, at which we heard, you know, that Knox was working on being a bit of a community hub and hosting the weekly coffee sessions to bring people together. So we launched the Community Builders Workshop. And it was very difficult at first, actually, because there weren't very many people that were interested, because people were kind of like, oh, I've done lots of volunteering. I don't want to do more volunteering. I don't want work. But once we started just talking about what people wanted to see in the community and talking about some ideas of things people wanted to do, people sort of gradually became more engaged. And it was just really neat to see. And I think the project outside, activating that outdoor space, really brought people together. And it was weird for me because I was really involved at the beginning, and then in the middle I kind of had to, I was supposed to be moving, so I had to step out for a while, and then kind of came back when the finishing touches were going on, and suddenly there was like a whole lot more people involved and tons of positive energy, and it was just really great to see. And I think it just says that when you can find something that people want to do together that makes them feel that they're doing something good for the community, it's very easy to bring people in and get people to volunteer their time. Because it's enjoyable, you feel good about it, and you meet great people. So it was just fantastic to see that coming together, and to see all the great work by Tiffany and everyone at Knox.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, it was awesome having you involved. And I should also mention, before we're going to finish, the Calgary Foundation, I need to give a huge shout out to the Calgary Foundation. And I almost forgot, but it was on my last slide, but they deserve more of a shout out. And I was thinking about them when Kate was talking, because Kate had also helped with the first draft of getting a grant application out to the Calgary Foundation. And we ended up receiving a neighbor grant from the Calgary Foundation, which has been a huge yeah, I guess that wind in your sail that you need to actually make projects happen. So yeah, that was a huge help to us as well. Yeah, so our project was supposed to be wrapped up by this spring, but because of some of the setbacks that I had mentioned earlier, especially with like contracts and supplies and how we haven't actually started some of the things we intended to complete in the fall, they've been really gracious and flexible as well. So that's been really lovely. If anyone's interested, contact Julie Black to learn more about the community grants, or the neighbor grant and the stepping stone grants. And yeah, great source of funding. So yeah. I also wanted to give Marie a chance if she was interested. Yeah, if you're interested in sharing a word, Marie, of just being involved, it would be really lovely. Something that stood out to me, Marie has been connected to Knox for a long, long time. And she had made many comments this summer about how she had possibly never really spent time on the lawn. And this past summer, it was like you were there all the time. So I'm just wondering if you could share maybe a reflection or two about just seeing a space in a new way.
Okay, can I speak?
Yeah, you're on.
I'm on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi there. Thanks, Tiffany. No, I just revolved around all the good energy that was there and all the things that were happening, and it was fun to be. I had just retired too last spring, so it was kind of a fun way to put your head into a different space. And I have been around Knox for a long time, and I don't think I had ever actually stood out on that side lawn before last summer, so that was fun. Yeah, it was great to see community people and little kids going by with their grandmas or their nannies and jumping on the hopscotch and painting a rock and bringing it to drop by. So did you want me to mention the rug hooking group too?
Sure.
So then when we started meeting back in the big hall, I think it was the end of August or September, another woman and I brought our rug hooking because I didn't know how do you sit 6 feet apart and visit. So I wanted to have something to do. So then Tiffany, you asked if we'd start a group. So we did, and that grew pretty quickly, along with Suzanne Wismer, who's a friend of mine, a rug hooking friend, and she happens to have a little shop and could make up some kits. So coming up here, we're still meeting, we're meeting on Zoom after we got shut down, and that's going well. And it's open really to rug hookers and any other people who do other type crafts, arts, whatever. And so we're going to be giving a little plug for some new rug hookers here shortly. And so that information will be going out to the community.
And they might just be rug hooking on the lawn before we know it. So
yes, whenever the weather is warm enough, hopefully we will be.
That's great. Awesome. Well, I will turn it back over to Amanda. We are open to any questions that people have. Yeah, I did see one question come through directly to me in the chat. In addition to Youth Central, which other organizations did you partner with in the community? So maybe I'll just talk a little bit more about that just really quickly. And then, I'll see if there's any other questions, I guess. So for partnerships, I know Lauren had mentioned most of them. Maybe what I'll just do is reshare my screen. So those who maybe didn't have enough time to see what was on there, you can jot down some of the ideas that were there. So we had obviously Calgary Foundation and Youth Central, and then Immigrant Services Calgary. Sweet Fusion was the candy shop that Lauren had mentioned, and Butter Love Sugar had made cookies that were all individually packaged, perfect COVID friendly for one of our events. And then Annalyn Decorating Center was our local paint shop, and they gave a lot of donations. And then Lowe's is not super far from us, it's just in Signal Hill. And then also this picture in the middle is, that's Leanne Ellis in the middle. She did the art sale. She's an artist, and she did an art sale fundraiser. So she lives in the neighborhood. She's on the board of the community association, very passionate about our community being just an awesome place to live. And when she heard about the project, she thought, what can I do? How can I contribute? And so she organized her own fundraiser to help us out. And she was able to sell enough and pull together enough funds for the picnic table project. So those are some of we also had local musicians and like our sound tech person. So yeah, just a few reminders there. I know Lauren had mentioned a few of those. So yeah, just to help generate some ideas maybe for your own communities. I saw another question come through about our location. Let me just stop share here. So we are in Rutland Park is our technical neighborhood, but we're right on the corner of Rutland Park. So we actually, across the street is Glenmorgan. So if you know Glenmorgan Bakery, most people do. We're right across the road from Glenmorgan Bakery and the Safeway there. And then we're also across the other street is Killarney. And then diagonally, we're also right bumped up against Glendale. I always mix up Glendale and Glenbrook. But yeah, that's our area. So it's 37th Street Southwest.
Thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing all of the amazing things that you were able to do last summer. I know I'm super inspired, and I know we had talked a lot about a lot of these ideas, but just sort of like hearing it all again is amazing. From the really kind of simple, just sort of like taking chairs and claiming the lawn and making that a space to connect, to some of the more intentional and lasting pieces that you've invested in and are continuing to. It's really fantastic. I know that there was a hand up earlier. I think Munira had a question. So do you want to ask your question now?
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to do that. You know, I have to say, Tiffany, this was the most inspirational story that I ever heard from COVID of how a neighborhood can come together and just, you know, really honestly move mountains. You had mentioned that there was a neighborhood spaces grant and another grant and a lady named Julie, and I'm wondering what the last name was and how we could maybe get in touch with her for some of our youth projects.
Yeah, for sure. So
thank you.
That's the Calgary Foundation was our main funder. And Julie Black is the person, the go-to person when it comes to neighborhood-based projects and trying to maybe find a partnership there that works. So yeah, Julie Black at the Calgary Foundation. And if you just, I think if you just Google her name, you'll get her contact info on their website.
And I'll share information too in the follow-up emails so that you can just like access the grant, the links to the grants and Julie's information there too.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And again, thanks for sharing your story. Kudos to you and your team. Well done.
Thanks. Were there any other questions?
Actually, Tiffany, I have a question that I'm just curious because I can't remember. Were there any restrictions when last summer? Were there any limits to the number of people that could gather? Like right now, we're not allowed to have more than 10. And then, like, I'm just thinking, I love the idea of having people come and bring a chair and bring a coffee. But I was like, are we allowed, like if people are really spread out, I mean, we have a hockey arena we could use. If people are really spread out, are we allowed to have more than 10? I know you're not like an AHS official or whatever, but were you able to get around any of those? I guess that's my question. Or
yeah, I feel like I want to call on Lauren for this because I feel like your memory is going to be better than mine about what kind of restrictions we were working on, working around. I know when we first started the coffee on the lawn, actually, I think it must have been through most of the summer, we were allowed to have, at one point it was tight. It was like 20 people or something. And we were getting close to our max. But then it lifted for a while. I can't remember exactly the restrictions that we were up against at the time. But I know we always managed to keep within the limits that were set. So hopefully our restrictions get eased, especially for outdoor gatherings soon. But yeah, another big thing was having people sign up or that actually proved pretty challenging. It was an idea we experimented with, but for the kinds of activities we were doing, they're really drop-in kind of activities. So yeah, for the painting, it was just really important that we really spread people out and staggered people's participation, and made people wait when there wasn't enough space. Yeah. If anybody else who was involved has anything else to add on that, I'm having a hard time remember what the actual restrictions were. They were just changing so much.
Yeah, in the summer, we did some outdoor curbside concerts and other things. And I think at one point there was like, you were allowed 50 people, and then it moved all the way up to 100 people. So hopefully we can get back there a little bit, because that was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Something I appreciated about the examples too is that you really had a wide spectrum of initiatives, like some things that could be like with the painting of the stones that could be done at home over Zoom, and then sort of like added when people were just kind of out on a walk and alone and still having that sense of connectivity and things like this. So I think like you got really creative in being able to navigate the many different changes in restrictions, which certainly like were constantly changing and making it really difficult to plan for like, what do we do in a month if we don't know how many people will be allowed? So you kind of gave a lot of different examples of things that worked with various sizes, which is really great. Any other questions for the team over at Knox? Well, if you do, feel free to throw them in the chat. It's been such a delight to hear these stories and meet some of the people behind it all, and to kind of understand that process from start to finish of what that looked like and how it was really rooted in this like notion of dreaming and the strengths of the community, and kind of thinking about the spaces that you have differently and sort of saying like, oh, this is dumpster, which is sort of an eyesore right now, and not a space we want to kind of use, how kind of we're reimagining that into be a source of belonging and connection. And I love the hopscotch as a way of sort of inviting people onto the lawn, as you said, and sort of saying, like, let's get off the pathways and let's, like, the grass is here to be used, so use it. I think you've offered a lot of inspiration in that way. I know we wanted to have a conversation around other ideas that people might have. I'm also recognizing that we have about 15 minutes left. So maybe open it up and see if people have anything that they want to put forward either in the chat, or if we have one or two people who have things that they've done or that they're planning on doing that they'd like to share that help with this kind of notion of reclaiming outdoor spaces and encouraging us to access them for community purposes.
Hi, Amanda, this is Sylvia. Thanks, Tiffany, and all the other members of Knox Presbyterian. Great inspirational stories of how you activated the outdoor space just around you. One of the things I'm going to be trying to do here with the partnership with the library and parks is just theme walks. We could still limit it to the 10 people, but just people wanting to be outdoors and exploring the neighborhood. But it's easier when you're in a group. Sometimes they're maybe more cautious by themselves. So similar concepts to the Jane's Walk, but we can't do Jane's Walk this year, but they still can happen in exploring maybe just the parks in the neighborhood or different landmarks or historical. Just again, how do you get people outdoor and enjoying those spaces that they don't usually travel in? So that's just one idea.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And that's another great example of something physical that people can do together outside and like actually going on the walk, but also a really great engagement opportunity beforehand too, of inviting community members of like, what are walks that you would want to share with other people, and having people kind of plan that out beforehand to be another point of connection, and create another opportunity for people to be involved in that process. That's a really fantastic idea, Sylvia. Does anybody have any other ideas that they'd like to put forward?
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm from Coach Hill Patterson Heights Community Association, and we actually work together with our city people to actually put one of those freestanding libraries in a city playground. So, and it worked well. It was a little bit of work because you had to get you had to get the markings on there and where you can place it. But we were able to put one on there and right in a playground, and put our little sign underneath it saying where it's a community association driven library, so people know, and it's worked out really well.
I was going to mention, since you were talking about the city and the hopscotch. So this was last summer, and I'm sure they'll have them this summer, but they had templates that you could use on, so we use it on the corner of our parking lot, but you could paint different games on like a hard surface or whatever. So we just had to buy the paint. I'm sure the city still has them, and they would be lending them out again this year, but that was a pretty easy thing to do last summer, just to get some families out by the community center.
They had to leave early, but somebody who was here earlier, Grace, I'm sure many of you are familiar with, has been really championing little free pantries in the city for the last few years. I think that's another really great way, much like the little free libraries, of kind of doing a bit of that placemaking and claiming some of this public space to encourage people to kind of share food items and support community members who maybe need a bit more food supports, which was already a bit of a crisis in the city before the pandemic, and has certainly been amplified since. So I think that kind of related to Little Free Libraries is another initiative, and I think I've been hearing about more and more people who are doing that in different ways, which is really great to hear. Any other plans for the summer or spring that people have, of things that they are hoping to try, or ideas they have that maybe you're not quite sure yet how to make it possible, but things that you'd like to experiment with regards to claiming outdoor space?
Yeah, last summer we built some benches, and we got some artists to paint them, as well as we got a couple artists to design and paint by volunteers a games table for each of our playgrounds. Very similar to what you were saying, Tiffany, even like the little rocks for the painted rocks for the pieces. So we'll probably, do something like that again this summer. It was fun, and it really brightens up the community.
Thanks for sharing, Sandra. And other Sandra, I noticed that you unmuted as well. Did you have something that you wanted to share?
No, I just accidentally unmuted. Sorry.
All good.
I haven't done any, like I'm with Cochrane Immigrant Services out here in Cochrane, and one thing we did do this last year is, because we didn't want to cancel our major event, so we changed it and made it a scavenger hunt. And so we were able to time everyone so that there was only ever, we actually had one person at each place, so that there was never more than 1 or 2 cars at each location, and to experience all the different, it was with Cochrane Immigrant Services, and so there was a different culture represented at each place, but we also visited great, wonderful outdoor spaces in Cochrane. So it was a great way to utilize that and still be able to run our event. So that would probably be the closest I have it to anything. But
thanks so much for sharing. Any other ideas that people want to put forward into our circle before we formally close for the evening?
I was wondering, because like the rocks thing, I don't know if that was a bit of a contagious idea in the city and elsewhere, but there was a family that they painted rocks and then they hid them in the park, and then they asked another family to go find them, and then it just sort of like organically grew from there. And I have noticed, like, my father's at a senior's home and there's, you know, beautifully painted rocks. So it seems to be like kind of a wonderfully contagious, fun idea that so many people can participate in. I'm wondering if anyone else had painted rocks in their.
But we do too, actually. We even have a Facebook page. So people paint rocks and then they just leave them leave them out in the parks or on the pathways. And then if you run into one, you take a picture of it and put it on Facebook. So it's like, and they all have lovely messages like, just keep swimming, you know, like we'll get through this together. And so it's kind of fun because you watch Facebook and, oh, there's my rock, somebody found it. So yeah, it's keeping kids engaged a little bit.
We have an Easter egg hunt going on right now, but it's painted rocks. So same kind of idea. But I love the Facebook idea. I never thought of that. That actually, I think we'll have to do that next time to get people a little bit more engaged. So that's a good idea.
Sorry, Sandra Scott, is that with Cochrane Immigrant Services? Where do you have your rocks?
No, it's actually a Cochrane thing. It's nothing to do with Cochrane Immigrant Services. Like, I don't want to take benefit for it. It's just in Cochrane. So I should try to find the name of the page. I think it's just called Colored Rocks, but it is in Cochrane. Yeah, seriously. Awesome. Yeah. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the chat.
Thanks so much. This has been such a wonderful, inspiring conversation. Love hearing what people are doing and what they're planning on doing, and definitely tag us on social media when you do things, and we'd love to share it and help amplify it and kind of inspire more people. It's always it's hard sometimes to take those first steps, but when we can create those spaces for dreaming and visioning and connecting, so much beautiful stuff can happen, as we've heard from an incredible example tonight. So I just want to, like, once again, it's kind of weird on Zoom where we can't kind of collectively like clap and have that giant moment together. But I just want to kind of really raise my hands and say thank you so much to Tiffany and to Lauren and to Paul and to Kate and to Marie and everybody who shared tonight, and all the people who made those great initiatives happen last summer, like Alexandra, who of course we're missing tonight, and lots of like gratitude, so much deep gratitude for what you've done and for sharing that here with us tonight. And hopefully this will kind of go on and inspire even more great things to happen across the city and across the area, across the province. We've had several people who are not from Calgary here tonight. So a huge thank you to that. And we just want to kind of recognize that we have about 5 minutes left together. So we will do our closing ritual, which we like to do for these events. But I will pitch one more time and throw it in the chat. If you want to share your contact information with the people who are here tonight to stay in touch, we've put together a shared document where people are throwing in their names and their email addresses. Thank you to Munira for this suggestion. So if you you do want to exchange information with people, you can throw it in there. And what we invite you to do now is, before we kind of formally close, if you want to share a gratitude or something that you're taking away from the evening, you can either unmute yourself and say it out loud or throw it in the chat. We'd love to kind of close with that moment of gratitude and sharing before we head off into the night.
It's Manira. I'm very, very grateful for all the openness and the sharing of honest information and just the whole positive vibe that we get from our meetings, because it shows that not only are we not alone, but we're inspiring other people in the community to come work with us. And thank you, Amanda, for always bringing us together. You're naturally a hero at this. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I thank you for the inspiration, because I have a new job with Caria, and one thing we've actually talked about is even getting a wagon and just filling it with stuff and then walking around the neighborhood and just meeting people and out in the neighborhood in the park. And this inspires me to what I'm going to put in that wagon and try to reach people in my community.
You can go ahead, Penny. Well, while Penny figures out unmuting, I see we have a couple of things in the chat that I'll just speak into the chat. So we have, it's wonderful to hear everyone's inspiration and around community and neighborhood. Great event, especially liked Lauren's comment about people bringing what they can do and what they can't do, and that it all contributes. And I also see in here we have small beginnings reap great harvests. Penny, what's your gratitude or takeaway for the night?
I've had some lovely thoughts and ideas, both for our community and for our church to consider. We've talked about becoming a community hub, but well, with COVID, we're a Zoom hub, so it's kind of different. I'm thinking my neighborhood should have a sign, and we don't have one. And that may lead to a fair bit of negotiating with the city as to where we might be allowed and what size it might be able to be. But I think that would be kind of a fun thing to do. We're not too dangerous in terms of germs and viri.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
And just Penny, just to add to that, you know, instead of having a sign, there used to be, and I used to see in communities on city posts, they would put a community like flag that would hang off the city light posts. So might be a lot cheaper alternative than doing a sign or whatever, but that could be, you know, something as well. And it's easy to, you know, if it had to be taken down for whatever reason, it's something easy that can be folded out. But I used to see that around in the communities as well. So just a thought.
Okay.
It's a really great idea. Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. Any last gratitudes that people want to offer before we sign off for the night?
I just wanted to say thanks for having the chance to share, and also to hear from others on the team as well, and to hear other ideas that people are doing within our current 10-person limit, like the walking groups and that. Yeah, I'm just really grateful. Again, it's energizing for me as well, just to revisit this concept of community building through outdoor spaces. Yeah, and if anybody wanted to get in touch with me or had follow-up questions, I will add my contact info to the chart that Amanda had sent out, and I'll also just throw it in the chat as well right now, in case anybody had any questions, or if you live in the neighborhood and want to get involved, or if you know of somebody who might like to get involved. We yeah, are always open to new energy and ideas. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you once again. Thank you everyone for being here and sharing this space with us tonight. It was a wonderful time. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and a great couple of weeks, and let us know what you end up doing. We love to hear those stories. So thanks so much and take care, everyone.